We need a numbers guy to change our odds on this subject. Please welcome into the show America's accountant. That's Dan Geltrude from Nutley, New Jersey. Thanks for being on the show, Dan. It's a lose-lose scenario, and we've got a pretty serious situation on our hands because it almost spun out of control today.
Well, I think what you're saying, in other words, is exactly what the opposite thing that the Fed thinks they can do, which is a soft landing, which means that they'll be able to raise interest rates, get inflation down, and not have the economy suffer too much. As time goes on here, Scott, we see that that is becoming more and more impossible. Now, as you alluded to when you were speaking before, you have the Fed raising interest rates. We're not really seeing a significant impact on inflation. So you have to ask the question, is this really going to work? And it's not just the United States. Around the world, interest rates are going up, yet we are not seeing inflation recede. So again, we have to ask the question, is there any guarantee that raising interest rates is going to eliminate or even reduce inflation, Scott? And it doesn't seem that way.
I agree, because there's two sides of the equation. That's the demand side. They're working on that. That's all they can do. But we also have to work on the supply side. That's also an issue. And, because we do this show and it's now getting a little bit more popular, actually a lot bit more popular. Thank you very much for that, Mr. Geltrude. I had somebody call me this morning early to say that he's got a pretty big roofing company in the Midwest, right? And he said that he hasn't been able to get supplies. The supply chain's been killing him. I mean, we're talking 6, 7, 8, 9 months, maybe even a year for some stuff. So he's not really been even giving bids on jobs because he knows he can't get anything to get it done with. But suddenly, he's getting anything he needs whenever he needs it. And he said it's because the rumor is, and this is not a rumor, but the fact is, Amazon has been canceling a bunch of their fulfillment facilities that they were going to build because they see something coming around the corner that maybe a lot of folks don't see yet, right? They see it a lot, just like the FedEx CEO sees it. And so I think you're right. We need to work on the supply side too, because we just can't kill the economy to help the patient. We also have to bring more things to the table with production and supply. And it's for some reason, everybody's been ignoring that side of the equation. I just don't understand.
And, well, you're right. And on top of that, Scott, we have to recognize when you have a supply side cause to inflation, the Fed is not equipped to address that. Yet the government is saying, listen, we're going to rely on the Fed to solve this problem. So again, the question we must ask is, does the Fed actually matter in the circumstances that we're in? Again, we don't have an issue with demand. We want to see demand. We want consumers out there wanting product and having the money to spend. Great. Let's not touch that side. As you just talked about, it is the supply side for which the Fed cannot do anything. Now, when you're going to address supply side, Scott, that's when you're talking policy, right? You got to have policy changes to address how do you get more product to market, which, of course, is being ignored. And that's why I have to go back and say, soft landing? I don't think so.
No, I know you know who Stanley Druckenmiller is, and Stanley Druckenmiller, I like Stanley. He came out today and he says he thinks it's much, much more serious than that. So we've got a lot of scaremongering out there. But back to your point, we've got the Fed, and if you look at the Fed as they've got their foot on the brakes, right? They're trying to slow down demand. They're trying to slow down the economy. But at the same time, we've got an administration that keeps throwing policy into the fire, which is basically like stepping on the gas. So we are trying to manage this problem of 8.3% inflation with one foot on the brake and one foot on the gas. And that's not really going to get us anywhere. That's going to get us in trouble.
Well, it certainly is. And if you take that example literally, and I know you were a wild guy when in your younger years, right, Scott, when you were in your car and you were jamming it on the gas and on the brake, you were doing donuts. And that's exactly what's going on. Right. We're spinning round and round and round. We're not getting anywhere because you have two arms of the government pulling in opposite directions. So there's no way to make any progress. So again, right hand not talking to the left hand, and who, quite frankly, feels the pain? All of us. So you have to look and say, what's the path out of this? I don't know if you see it. I don't see it.
No, because, well, yeah, right. The only path out of it would have been to do something in hindsight, and that's not going to be fair. And so we have, we've got a situation now where, the economy, and you know what? It's also a world problem too, Dan. I think I want to stress that to everybody. Now this is a world problem, and our currency being so high and so strong because we have been at this machine gun approach of raising rates at every weekend, it seems like. That's made us so much more expensive compared to other currencies. And they aren't doing well, and to make our goods and services even more expensive, then is a double whammy. It's going to slow everything down. I mean, we have really got a situation in our hands that I've said to the producer, Ashley, in the morning, sometimes I wonder how they sleep at night in Washington, because there is a situation brewing on their hands here. And I know that there's been a few out there that have tried to sound warning signs, but I feel it.
Well, the way they sleep is I think they believe their own nonsensical positions and spins. Like when they started off in this whole thing saying, well, it's transitory, it's just gonna go away. And then they sit back and cross their fingers and they believe it, and that's how they put their head on the pillow. But listen, there's cause and effect to everything, Scott. Things just don't happen randomly.
Right.
There's a reason why things happen. And the question here is why isn't anybody actually looking at the cause of inflation? So we scream it from the rooftops. It's supply, everybody. It's supply.
Well, we're going to keep trying to do that. In the meantime, it's going to give you and I a lot to talk about, so you'll be back here a lot more often than probably you'll like, but I appreciate that very much. Dan Geltrude, Nutley, New Jersey, thanks for being on the show. Let's take a look at the markets that Dan and I talk about all the time.